I'm Susan McPherson. I run McPherson Strategies. We are a social impact consultancy here in New York with several offices in other parts of the country. But more importantly, I started my career at kind of the advent of journalism and technology. And so I kind of grew up in technology and then exited about 5 or 6 years ago. Although I think what we all know is technology isn't this other anymore. It's baked into every single thing we do in every part of our lives. I always joke that, our refrigerators are technological now. But we have a great panel, and we're going to be talking to these 4 women about their careers, how they got where they are today, the struggles that they faced as women in the tech sector, which I know there's some men here in the audience, which is wonderful, but you'd have to be living under a rock if you weren't aware of some of the challenges that women and probably other minorities have felt in the tech sector. And we're also going to talk about, what can be done going forward, and specifically what, if these women could tell their first out of college, on the road to their careers, what would they tell that young girl at this point in time if they had a chance to speak with her? So I want to introduce, and I want to make sure I'm doing it in the right order. We have next to me Goldberg, who is with InMotion Entertainment, which I just learned is based in Florida, but Eden lives here in Woodbury, Long Island. And then we have Alexandra Harding from Ingram Micro. I think we've all heard of Ingram Micro, yes? And she's based in Scottsdale, hence the tan that she has. And then, or lack of, because it's probably too hot, right? And then we have Aparna Behari, who is with Google in Mountain View. And last but not least, Pratt, who is with Tech Up for Women, which I've just learned about. And if you don't know about it, you need to learn about it. So I'm first going to ask them to each give you a little bit of their background and kind of what they've seen over the years and maybe a few war stories that they want to share. And then we'll do some Q&A. And obviously, if you have any questions, we would love to have them answered, or if you have thoughts to share. So first and foremost, I hate to go left to right, so I am going to start all the way to that is to the left. I'm going to go right to left. So why don't we start with you, Eden?
Okay. Hi, I'm Eden Goldberg. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Business Development for InMotion Entertainment Group. We are a retailer in airports. I have been with the company almost since day one. We just celebrated our 20-year anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And being in an airport sector, and certainly in our space, we started as an entertainment retailer selling CDs and DVDs and renting DVD players and from one city to another, for anyone who might remember back then. And we have certainly transformed ourselves, and I've been part of that executive team to continue to find new ways to evolve the business and follow the trends for the traveling consumer.
Amazing. And how many of you have been in an InMotion store? Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, you probably have been in them and didn't even know it, but now you do. All right.
So I'm Alexandra. Everybody calls me Alex. I've been with Ingram Micro for 10 years now. I am the Director of Vendor Management for the Business and Consumer Division for the U.S. Prior to that, I grew up in the retail environment, brick and mortar stores. I worked at, some big box companies that aren't around anymore. Actually, a lot of the companies aren't around anymore, but I had nothing to do with that. But I've always been in this industry. Started young, very young, like part-time, putting needles on tone arms and balancing tone arms for record players, if anybody knows even what that is. I do, but love it. I've got a great role at Ingram Micro, which is a fantastic company. I have an incredible team, right, a very diverse team that I just love to mentor and bring up, but that's what I do with Ingram Micro.
Excellent, excellent.
Hi there. My name is Aparna Behari. I work for Google. I've been at Google for close to 7 years. I head up our retail and telco distribution for our amazing portfolio of hardware products. So everything from the Google Pixel phones to Google Home Mini, and our Pixel books. So we have some amazing products that I'm really proud to kind of get into the hands of consumers. I've been in this role for about a year and a half, and I've been really fortunate to have 3 roles within Google. My first role was to help launch their e-commerce site, the Google Store. It was a mighty team of 5 trying to figure out how to best sell hardware through the Google Play Store at the time, and we evolved to launching our own Google Store. From there, I spent a couple of years doing a global go-to-market role. I helped launch the Google Assistant worldwide into the marketplace. And then from here, I've been really focused on establishing scale and focus for our teams as we try to grow and launch our businesses in the U.S.
Aparna, just curious, what did you do before you were at Google?
So prior to Google, I spent 7 years at Apple. I was really fortunate. I got there before the launch of iPhone and iPad, so I got to see the trajectory and the changes that these products had on people's kind of livelihoods and lives. I managed our third-party business, so I helped develop the ecosystem for everything from cases and headphones to speaker solutions and the beginnings of IoT. Prior to that, I was at Walmart.com. I launched the apparel business on Walmart.com. Believe it or not, at that time, Walmart.com did not sell apparel online. And so I helped build and craft the business case for that and actually launched the business and was head of the women's apparel business at Walmart.com. And then I spent about 6 years in management consulting, mostly in supply chain, working at companies like Pratt Whitney, Allison Engine, things like that.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
Hi, I'm Dawn Pratt. I run a corporate training company, and from our many women's initiative programs we were doing, we 2.5 years ago founded the Tech Up for Women Conference. We're so excited about it. It came from a lot of Fortune 500 companies that we were going into, had a need for women's initiatives of confidence building, negotiation skills, and we found that there was a real need for women to tech up, learn how to use technology to advance their career and company. So it's been a lot of fun. If any of you get a chance, go on our website, and we'd love to have comments and feedback from it. So it's evolving.
What about your previous before then?
So I started in the publishing world, and then trade shows and conferences in every industry you can imagine. From printing to consumer electronics to fancy food, a number of events that are actually in this building or right now on the design engineering side, and every industry pretty much.
Well, and it's funny because now every industry is tech. I mean,
Absolutely.
you remember when there was you had your tech department where, when your computer wouldn't turn on or off, or in a Windows machine, it was just Control-Alt-Delete, Again, we're dating some of ourselves here. Or just try rebooting. I mean, but that's what I would think of as the tech department. And now everybody is a technologist.
Exactly.
So thank you for that. And I want to start by saying I didn't hear in any of your descriptions any kind of hardships or any kind of challenges that you faced. And I know we always tend to only kind of talk about the good things and our successes, which is wonderful. But I think as women, we have all faced challenges, whether in the tech sector or not. And I'd love to just hear from each of you a time that you might recall where perhaps you were held back or stymied because, and maybe it was for other reasons, but maybe at the time you perceived it for that reason. Anybody want to? If not, I can ask the audience.
No, I would say for me, right, again, I've been in this industry, my entire career has been in consumer electronics. And back in the day when I started, it was a public company, but it was based in Florida. Great company, but it was mainly a male-dominated industry, right? And I had my job, and I did my job, and did it very well, but always struggled to get promoted, to take that next step. And what I found after being there for almost 20 years, which is a long time, and I'm dating myself, and I started young, is I left. And I went and did something else within consumer, and there my career blew up from there. And I didn't realize while I loved what I did and the people I worked with, I became very comfortable and very complacent and just accepted it, right? And as long as they kept giving me little raises, I was happy. And I realized that making that change and getting out of that environment is what I needed. And that was a big change. And I've moved states. I mean, I lived in Florida, I've lived in Massachusetts, I've lived in Texas, and now I live in Arizona while being a single mom. And I took it all on, and my career has just grown and grown and grown. And I was allowed to, to bloom, to put it.
But you had to take the initiative.
I had to take the initiative.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, because we talked a little bit earlier about this need for mentors and how if there had been a mentor, somebody might have given you a little nudge.
Right.
Anybody else want to comment on?
So I find a hardship for me was early stages in the trade show business of negotiation. I was always having to negotiate with mostly men, and I had to learn different techniques to have a better negotiation, or I was always on the wrong side of the deal. So I really learned, and it sort of led me to the corporate training side of influencing skills, negotiation, knowing when to shut up and not talk, and wait for someone, sit back, and a lot of skills like that that I didn't know in my early days.
Sure.
I would say the challenge of being a woman in a male-centric business comes along with any industry and any professional. You know your strengths and you know your weaknesses, and I think that as soon as I accepted my strengths and accepted my weaknesses and accepted my vulnerabilities as being a woman, for example, it was the moment I learned to embrace that was my unique offer to the table. And I am the one at the negotiation table on behalf of the men because they won't step up, and they know I will.
Good for you. Aparna, did you want to?
Yeah, so I think when I joined my former employer, when I was at Apple, there was a real big inflection point in the industry. The data showed that 50% of our customers, or the Apple customer, was women. But when you looked at the products that our business partners were developing for us, they were developing them for men and for men's use cases. And so oftentimes I would sit in these rooms as a buyer asking for products that needed to cater to kind of women's specific needs, right? You can imagine the cases or headphones. And the answer in the beginning was always to shrink it and pink it. And I think it took a lot of tenacity to say, I really need you to start investing and start thinking about these are the types of products that we can sell, and start doing tests and start helping us to kind of move the business in this area, because there's incremental revenue, incremental margin.
Oh yeah.
And it was a really hard challenge, because as we talked about before, most of my business partners were male. They didn't really have the perspective, and I think taking a big step back and being able to talk about it from a data perspective, also making sure that risk was protected and speaking in a language that was not just, hey, I'm a woman, I want to buy women's things, but as a way to create this opportunity really helped. And I think we really changed and transformed kind of a lot of the consumer electronics and accessories for the mobile space. And a lot of that was driven because I had a big backing of Apple behind me, but it was also because I had to come to the table with really a data-driven approach, and I think that really helped me a lot.
Well, I think the U.S. car industry would have been so far ahead of the game if they had brought women in back in the 60s and 70s, because interestingly enough now, almost all major purchases now are done by women, including cars and everything else under the sun. I think it's something like 85% of major purchases are done by women. But it's interesting what you're saying, because if you're only designing products for one sector of the public, you're missing huge financial opportunities. And I sometimes point out, and this is kind of a horrifying stat, that it was a few years ago, but they found out that the hearts that are made for heart replacement surgeries almost never fit the woman's cavity because they were designed to fit a man's chest cavity or chest, whatever that. I'm not a doctor, but when you think about what the ramifications for something like that is, right? If you need a heart, you're going to want it to fit in that body of yours. But no, that was really, really interesting. And I do think this notion of women advancing in technology, we're light years away from where we were. I mean, you see Susan Wojcicki, who's the head of YouTube. You see, Sheryl Sandberg. But I also have to remind myself, these are, you hear about them because they're famous, right? But when you peel back the layers, the numbers are still not as good as they should be. I mean, we should be at an equal basis. Also, companies that have a diverse C-suite and diversity at the senior level, actually studies have shown that they sell more, their revenues are higher, it's better for the business. Anyhow, blah blah blah. Yes. I want to talk about you. A few of you indicated your pivots, and a few of you indicated challenges. Did anybody in particular? And I know with Alexandra, did you go by Alex or Alexandra? Alex. You didn't have a mentor, but
Nope.
Did any of the rest of you have mentors or somebody that was looking out for you?
So I've always had mentors. I just believe that not only should you have mentors, but you should try to be a mentor to people as well. And honestly, when I look back throughout my life, if it wasn't for my mentors, I don't know where I would be. So I just think it always helps to be able to run something by another person that has a different perspective than you do. I try to now have a lot of different types of mentors in all different industries, and that's helpful as well.
Yeah, so we were talking about this earlier, and I feel like it's been a miss for me. It's one of the pieces of advice I think people always give is to kind of find and establish a mentor that's kind of outside your immediate kind of work area. And it's something that I've listened to, nodded, and kind of not done. But I think at various points in my career, it would have been a nice opportunity for me to have a chat with someone about, here are some of the challenges I'm facing, or here are some of the risks I'm going to take if I kind of change things in a certain way. It's just, I think it's a good opportunity and something that I think not just as women, but as people in this field to be mindful of. A good mentor can kind of help you kind of think through things in a different way.
Mm-hmm. And be an objective. I think that's also, I mean, we talk to our friends, we talk to our significant others, but they're going to provide guidance and advice, not very
Unbiased.
objective. Yes. You want to find someone who's going to be really upfront and honest, but also have your back, if things are going not the way you want them to be going, and somebody can give you some honest feedback.
Yeah, I would say even though I've never had a mentor, part of my team's career development, one of their requirements is that they have a mentor, not a mentor within the business that we're doing, but it could be a mentor in the finance department or something like that gives them a different perspective. And you should always have a business mentor and a personal mentor, right? And it's good, and it's a requirement I have of my team for them to continue to develop their careers.
Eden, have you had a mentor?
I have not had an official mentor. I have.
What is an official versus?
I don't know. I'm hearing mentor, and I
Any
think,
of you, a
I
show of
think
hands, who's had a mentor? Oh, come on, stretch. It's
think-
good for your back. Stretch.
I wish I could raise my hand and say I've had one particular mentor. I've had a very professional, career-oriented mother who was certainly a mentor to me, as well as my siblings and a network of friends within the industry, which may have, they all may have their bias, but their input is
invaluable,
paramount to me. And knowing me and my goals and my environment really have helped contribute. But I'd say that I'd like to focus more on mentoring and helping the industry as a whole or specific people that I can hopefully affect.
And that is, I mean, extraordinarily rewarding. Dawn, you look like you were about to say something.
What I wanted to say is that I have found recently, as I've aged, that it's really fun to have a mentor that is really young.
Yep.
So I have been seeking out some mentors, some younger people, and that's been really helpful. as well as males.
Yeah.
Males have been great mentors to me as well.
Very obviously, and especially in the tech sector where you had such a preponderance of more men in the C-suite and men in executives. I mean, again, I'm dating myself to the 90s. But a friend of mine here in New York started these salons called 40 over 20 or 40/20. And the goal was to bring together women in their 40s and women in their 20s. And her initial thought was the women in the 40s were going to be providing advice and guidance to the 20-somethings. And it turned out to be just a mishmash, right? And just what you said. And I personally always surround myself by, I mean, I'm single and I don't have children. So many of my friends are in their 30s and 20s and 40s. So it keeps me fresh on technology and kind of like what's the best new app, and things like that I wouldn't if I most likely hung out with people my age.
Well, I think what we're all saying is we can't work alone and we can't work in a vacuum.
Right.
And we have to be open to learning, and whether it's from a younger or from someone with a different background. I have a very diverse team. I work with one of my best friends, but I also have a very diverse team of different ethnicities and backgrounds and cultures. And I think that all contributes to making us a more holistic department, but also contribution to the company as a whole.
More
and then my network as well is quite varied, and that helps me, and I'm hopefully helping them. But it's really about being open.
Yeah. Well, and I think that given today with the gig economy and so many people telecommuting too, it becomes really, the onus is on you in many cases if you're a solo and you're, Eden works here, but her company is based in Florida. So for you to stay engaged, it's important for you to find your communities, etc.
Absolutely.
So, but how about mentoring? You mentioned that you enjoy that and you find satisfaction in that. Are each of you doing the same now?
I mentor both male, female, right? It doesn't matter. I think, when we were talking about it earlier, right? A lot of us have been in this industry a while. We've walked that road. We've got some tribal knowledge that we share for free, right?
Yeah.
And if you're up and coming, and whether you're male or female, but up and coming in this industry, get that information, right? You don't have to take the hard, long road because someone's already done it for you. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get to the same end, right? Because you may have a different goal or a different vision. But some of that stuff, take advantage of being able to get that knowledge from people that, like us sitting here. And there's many people out there in the industry. It's free. It's free to help you. And I would say that.
And Aparna, you have such a fascinating background. I can imagine people line up asking you advice.
I don't know about the lineup, but I do.
I'll be your agent.
I do try to make myself available for questions because I remember when I had them, and so I'll never kind of turn down someone asking me for a coffee or for a half an hour. But where I really like to spend my time, like true mentorship, is there's a program in San Francisco where they help children who are the first to go to college and their families. And I think that's really where I've been focusing. And I know this is about career, but I think a lot of that really stems from where your environment was in high school and your ability to navigate that.
Yes.
I was so fortunate that, my dad did all that, right? My dad was the first one to come to the country, but he came as a college student, had to navigate his way through that world by himself. And so I find that being able to have that helping hand to a lot of high school students who just don't have it. Either there's a language barrier or there's...
and we make things very complicated.
And we do.
Where to get your, where to sign up for the SATs. It's not like high schools have the staff, guidance counselors like they used to, et cetera. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but no, I think what you're saying is so wonderful. What is the name of the organization?
It's called First Graduate.
Okay. Is it a national or is it based in?
It's based in San Francisco.
Yeah, wonderful though. Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
That sounds great.
Anybody? Did you want to talk about some of the, mentoring that you're doing?
One of the goals of our Tech Up for Women is just ongoing mentoring and being a resource platform for all women in every industry, every job function to go on our website and network, collaborate. And so I look at, in terms of mentoring, really Tech Up for Women is a large mentoring platform.
Right, which is
Fantastic.
great, yeah. I mean, one of the boards I serve on is the Lower East Side Girls Club, and if any of you are based in New York, it's obviously very local, but it is a 35,000 square foot center in the Lower East Side, which is one part of New York City where you have massive wealth disparity, and it's free for all girls between the ages of 8 and 18. But what the girls are able to do is not just come and, what they would do at maybe a girls and boys club, sports and other activities, but there's a planetarium, there's a coding center, there is a bake shop where they are taught not only how to cook or to bake, but how to package so that they can then sell the goods. There is a fashion design center, and what the club opens up to the businesses in the New York City area is bringing employees in to provide guidance and mentor these young girls. So I think that, what I would suggest to any of you is if your company doesn't have formal mentorship opportunities for you to be mentoring, there are probably a wealth of nonprofits, like the one Aparna mentioned, like the Lower East Side Girls Club, where you could be giving back and sharing, and also at the same time learning a lot about another organization or people from another walk of life. And again, the years I worked in technology, I felt sometimes like we were we were so siloed. And it wasn't until I started really serving and volunteering on the side with nonprofits that I started to realize there's this whole other world out there. So just for what it's worth. So I want to pivot and talk a little bit about, if you could tell the young girl that just graduated college, what advice would you pass on to her today? And Eden, you want to go first?
Sure. I would say be indispensable. Look around. How can you help out? How can you pitch in? How can you go to coffee with someone or attend an evening event, get outside of your comfort zone, walk over to a different department and pitch in, support, help, learn what someone's working on, even though it might not have to do with you. But the more involved you get with people on an emotional scale, you'll learn more and more about their side of the business, and be a go-to person. You become more indispensable, and you can really start shaping your career as you gain that wealth of trust.
Yeah. I mean, can you even imagine what it must be like in today's world versus the world that we started out in? I can't even go there, but that was very helpful. Who wants to go next?
So what I would say, number one, is be passionate about what you're doing, right? If you're passionate, everything else will start to fall into place. If you're not passionate, you need to go find something else. Also, don't let anybody define your future. You, yourself, are the only one that can define your future. And if you're hitting roadblocks, you go somewhere else, right? And you look another way to either get around the roadblock or get over, or, how do you, get across that roadblock. But don't let other people define your future. You do it. And I would say, take risks. Always take risks. I did that again, I was a single parent in this industry, and I love what I do. I love technology. I have a ton of it at home. I've got an 8K TV. I don't have any content to watch, but all my stuff is connected, right? I mean, everything. And again, that's that passion, right?
Yeah.
And if you're passionate, the people around you are going to be passionate, right? And be there. If you've got some knowledge, pass that knowledge along, or go to somebody who has knowledge, right? People always want to share their knowledge.
Yeah. No, that's
That
great.
would be my advice.
That's great. And clearly that's where you've lived, and you discovered late in the game, though. I mean, or later, I shouldn't say
Yes.
late. Nothing's ever too late.
No, absolutely not.
I would say, if I was kind of going back to give myself advice, I'm a really strong introvert. And I would say the advice I would give is to get over that. Don't eat lunch at your desk. Make it a point, if even you have to schedule it in, have lunch with someone at least 2 to 3 times a week if you can. Try to my dad used to always say, it's about your network. It's less about what you know. And I was focused on what I knew. Because I could control that. And I had comfort in learning, and I had comfort in executing. What I didn't have comfort in was reaching my hand across the table and saying, "Hi, my name is Aparna. How are you?" It took a long time to get over that. So I would say if you're like me and you're a little bit introverted, my strong recommendation is not to get over it, but to take those risks.
Yeah.
Because the network, the relationships, and the people that you meet along the way are so much more important than what you know.
Oh, it's so true. And 2 points to that. For those of you who are introverted in this audience, and clearly that is not something I am. My next life, I am going to be, just because I want to shut up for once. But there's a wonderful book called Hiding in the Bathroom. And there's a podcast that goes with it. And it's a delight. And even I sometimes will hide in the bathroom, even though I am very much extrovert. But even an extrovert can get nervous and be inhibited, and so that's one. And I think what you were saying about your network. I mean, my late mother, who sadly was killed at like 56, but so I don't remember much of her wisdom, but she always said, "It's not what you know, it's who you know," and I've carried that through my life, and it's helped.
I love all of these ideas. I think to my younger self, I would say, learn to look at the overall and read in between the lines, because I used to really be in a box. I'd make a decision in my little area, not looking at the overall. So I would say that probably be one of the number one things. And I think always to move yourself forward, learn new technology, educate yourself, always look at other people's sides, and just constantly be moving forward. And that's how you won't age. You'll always stay relevant. And my last thing I have to end with, it's a little goofy, but be an optimist.
Yeah.
The world needs more optimists.
Yeah. Well, and I'll just give you a few of mine. Listen twice. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So we should listen twice as much as we speak. But if I look back, I think I would tell myself it's all going to be okay. Because when we think about when, we lost a job or we lost something, or that one account we were trying to close didn't come in and it seemed like the whole world was going to end. And, now looking back over 30 years, it actually didn't end. We're all still sitting here. But we have about 2 or 3 minutes left, so I wanted to find out if anybody had any questions or maybe any advice you'd like to offer the crew. And do we have an extra mic?
There's a paradox. We always want to show that we can be valued because of what we know and how good we are and how we do it. And yet at the same time, we are so surprised that somebody values what we know and how we do it. And and I'm guilty of that. But it's that paradox that we're so good at what we do. We know how to do it. Here's my A's and things like that. But at the same time, we get surprised when somebody values what we do.
Well, that speaks, I think, so again, we were talking about this earlier, the lack of confidence that women, and I think it's age like 7 or 8, a girl hits her most confident, and then it stagnates, and in many cases goes down from there. So that's for another panel on parenting.
I would just add one more thing is to still be confident when you don't know something.
Yeah.
And be confident in not knowing something, but confident in asking and finding the right people, because those people will value you just as much, and you can learn so much more, and that's how we'll continue to evolve.
Well, and how many of you know when women apply for jobs, they'll look at all the requirements and they'll say, oh, I can only do one. And a man who'll look at that will say, oh, I can do them all, even though they have no, less experience. So I think, again, it speaks to, like what you just said, even if we can't do it, own it.
Fake it till you make it.
There you go.
Sorry.
That's good. That's a good problem to have, right? Anybody else?
I come from the era where we broke the glass ceiling and cracked it with our own skull. one thing that's happening in the Me Too today, I think, as an outsider now, is many male mentors would be concerned about mentoring women.
Yeah.
I would like the panel to address that.
What men are afraid that, the vice president was saying he can't have a dinner when his wife isn't present. I mean, men are fearful today that they may be accused of something that they don't want to be accused of.
No, I think that goes both ways, right? It's not, I mean, yes, everything that we're hearing about is really more about women's experiences, but it goes both ways, right? And I think men are a little more, less likely to come up and talk about it, right? Or to, because it's not manly or whatever it may be, but I'm hearing things where, people go to doctors now and the doctors won't be in a room alone, right? They have to have someone in, which, I mean, that's pretty much been the way, but I mean, more so now doctors are actually saying, hold on, I can't see you, whether you're male or female, unless I have someone else in the room with me. Mm-hmm. So I think it's impacting us all. I think it's a very good movement. I think it needed to be exposed, right? But it's made everybody now step back, whether you're male or female or anything, whatever, right? Step back and say, hang on, right? You can't, don't touch anybody on an arm, or and I think it's hurt us in a little bit, right? It's great to have it exposed, but I also think it's made us all now so afraid just to be ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think it's having a bit of a negative impact as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'd say it's a very sensitive subject for mentorship as a whole, for men to mentor other men, or women to mentor other women, or one gender to the other, because of this evolution of our of gender and position in the world. So if you spend too much time or too much attention on a particular person, gender regardless, what does that mean? What are the ulterior motives? Are there any? And so it's just a new world for us to navigate through. And where are the safe zones?
Mm-hmm. And I certainly don't have the answers.
No.
I work at my company, we're all women. So.
But even that can be a very confusing world.
Excuse me, as I choke to death. Anybody else want to add? All right. Well, we're going to close it there then. I want to thank these 4 brilliant women, and thank our organizers, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.